It has been historically recorded that sexual violence has been used as a weapon of war in recent conflicts, including the former Yugoslavia, Sierra Leone, Rwanda, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Sudan, and northern Uganda. A recent horrific example of the use of rape as a weapon of war is Tigray. In the past 2 years, Tigrayan women had been subjected to rape, gang rape, sexual slavery, and other abuses by several forces. According to a joint study by Tigray Health Bureau and Mekelle University, an estimated 120,000 women have been subjected to sexual violence. Studies show that rape has a devastating mental health impact on survivors. A study by the National Violence Against Women Prevention Research Center at Medical University of South Carolina showed that almost 1/3 of all rape victims developed post-traumatic stress disorder sometime during their lifetime, and more than 1 in 10 rape survivors still have post-traumatic stress disorder today. Sisana Kidana, a psychiatry professional and assistant lecturer at Mekelle University, says that survivors of sexual violence mainly struggle due to 2 types of mental disorders. The first being depression. Survivors show symptoms of extreme sadness, loss of interest, sleep disturbance, eating disorder, and self-loath. And the second most commonly seen disorder among survivors of sexual violence is post-traumatic stress disorder, where survivors struggle with flashbacks, forcing them to relive the traumatic moment. Extreme anxiety, boredom, and loss of hope, sadness, and feeling weak all the time. These are some of the signs of depression. Survivors might also show loss of interest to hang out with families and friends, even if they liked to do it before. So loss of interest is also one symptom. Another symptom is sleep disturbance. Some of them might sleep all the time, but others might struggle to sleep. Eating disorder is also another symptom. Some of them might eat too much, and some of them might not have an appetite at all. There is also self-loss and criticism, which leads to suicide. Post-traumatic stress disorder. The second and mainly seen among survivors of sexual violence is post-traumatic stress disorder. This is a mental trauma that comes after an assault. Almost all the symptoms are similar with symptoms of depression. The only different symptoms are having flashbacks of the moment and nightmares, zoning off and reliving that traumatic moment while they are sitting with families and friends is also seen. Avoiding places, people, and events that remind them of the moment is also one symptom. For example, when survivors see someone in camouflage, they might run away or change course on the road. They might also change their route to avoid the place where the incident had happened. Survivors also withdraw or isolate themselves from the rest of the community due to change of attitude towards themselves and the world. Sisana says societal norms and traditions play a major role in healing or breaking these victims. She says that the first mistake in the context of victim society is trying to hide survivors away from their community. According to Sisana, stigmatizing victims leads to isolation and suicide. What we usually see in our community is that when a woman gets sexually assaulted, her family locks her up in the house in fear of everybody learning about the incident, instead of rushing her to a hospital. The other thing is, when a woman gets pregnant from a rape, one side of the community tells her that abortion is a sin and that she should keep the baby. The other side stigmatizes her by telling her not to give birth and raise an enemy's child. But in reality, the decision should be hers. These types of things might worsen the situation. When the survivor is married, divorce might come after the assault. This leads to self-isolation, and as I mentioned before, self-isolation leads to self-loath, and that might lead to depression, and in the end, suicide. Sisana says that the healing process and time might vary between survivors, but thinks with enough help and resources, healing these victims is possible. Healing is possible, but what we have to keep in mind is that the healing process, the lengths might vary from a person to a person. Some might show symptoms and some might not, even if they were gang raped for days. Some of them might heal very fast and it might take time for others. But to prevent lengthy recoveries, we should take survivors of sexual violence to the hospital as soon as possible. Support from family, friends, and our community also plays a huge role. When there is also enough support from governmental and non-governmental organizations, the healing process will be faster.